When I was 18, it was the start of summer break. I didn't have a job yet, and most of my days were spent indoors, killing time video games, streaming shows, scrolling on my phone, or just enjoying having nothing to do. My parents were out of town for several days, which wasn't unusual. They trusted me alone in the house, and I was used to it. Sometimes I'd invite friends over, but that night I was alone and enjoying the quiet. It was late, somewhere around 11 or midnight, when a knock suddenly echoed from the front door. I paused the show I was watching and stood up, only then realizing how late it actually was. Something about the timing made me hesitate. Instead of opening the door, I leaned forward and checked the peephole. Two men stood outside. They were dressed similarly, both facing the door, waiting. I stayed silent. I hadn't even decided what to do yet when one of them called out, politely, saying they were looking to speak with Mr. and Mrs. my parents. I didn't answer. The situation felt wrong. After a moment, the men exchanged a few quiet words and stepped off the porch. What bothered me most was that I never saw a car. No headlights, no engine, nothing. The porch light was off, and once they disappeared, I had no idea where they went. I returned to the living room, but didn't unpause the TV. I stayed alert, listening. Minutes later, I heard footsteps outside, again this time, not on the porch, but along the side of the house. I rushed to the back window and saw the two men opening the backyard gate and stepping inside. I ducked away before they could see me. They approached the back door. I heard them whisper, then the sound of someone testing the handle. Panic hit me all at once. I grabbed my phone and ran into the garage, hiding behind storage bins as I called the police. Less than a minute later, a loud cracking sound shook the house. The back door slid open. Heavy footsteps moved through the house and went straight upstairs. A bedroom door opened, then shut. Silence followed. I stayed frozen for what felt like forever. About 10 minutes until flashing lights finally lit up the driveway. The moment police arrived, I heard hurried footsteps upstairs and raised voices. Officers entered through the broken door and rushed up while one came to get me from the garage. The men were arrested without resistance. They never explained why they were there. Even weeks later, the only charge was breaking and entering. It still haunts me that they asked for my parents by name. It felt like they weren't there for valuables. It felt like they were waiting. Years later, living alone on the outskirts of a small Wyoming town, something else happened. My house sat far from town, surrounded by woods. One rainy spring evening, around sunset, someone knocked on my door. I barely heard it over the storm. A man stood there, late 20s maybe. He said he'd been camping in the woods and needed a place to stay. His story made sense geographically, but not logically. I didn't let him inside. I offered to call someone for him instead. He refused and walked away down the dirt road, eventually disappearing into the trees. 2 hours later, I noticed an orange glow through the rain outside my backyard window. A campfire burned beneath a tree. A figure stood beside it, holding something long. I couldn't tell if he was watching my house. I called the police. While waiting, I saw the figure approach the house, this time, carrying a rifle. He slammed the door with the gun. I fired a warning shot into the doorframe. The noise was deafening. When my hearing returned, the man was gone. Police later found a buried duffel bag near the fire containing tools, possibly weapons. They believed the attack had been planned. No suspect was ever identified. That wasn't the first time someone had been inside a home while I was there. As a teenager, alone most nights, while my mother worked overnight shifts, I once woke up to footsteps downstairs at 3:30 a.m. Assuming it was her, I stayed in bed until I realized the movement never stopped. Someone was methodically walking through every room. When I turned on my bedroom light, the sound stopped instantly. I went downstairs. The house was dark. A muddy shoe print marked the kitchen floor. Then I saw him, a man sitting silently at the dining table, dressed in black, wearing a mask. He stared at me without moving. I ran, locked myself in my room, called 911. By the time police arrived, he was gone. Nothing was stolen. It felt like he had been waiting for my mother. As an adult, the encounters didn't stop. I once found muddy footprints leading into a spare bedroom after securing my shed. A man stood inside, holding a shovel like a weapon. When I raised my rifle, he froze then fled through the window. Another time, while staying in an Airbnb late at night, I discovered someone already inside the house. He tried to force his way into my bedroom. I barely managed to lock the door. He ran when I screamed. In another rental, I woke to footsteps and found the front door unlocked. The next night, I discovered the intruder had been hiding inside the house while I searched it. He trashed the place, looking for something specific, then vanished. Then there was the attic. Late-night thuds led me to a hidden crawl space above my closet. When I opened it, I found a man crouched at the far end, staring back at me. He'd been living there for over a week without me knowing. More recently, after months of exhausting work schedules, I realized someone had been hiding in my house, moving only when I showered or slept. One night I woke to see his shadow pass under my door. When I confronted him, he stared back with eyes full of rage before fleeing. And finally, the farmhouse. After inheriting my mother's old rural home, a pickup truck began visiting late at night, first watching, then returning without headlights. Eventually, the man entered the house while I slept. He searched my bedroom, knowing I was there. I sold the house a month later. Even now, I still wonder how many of them were watching long before I noticed, how many were waiting, and how many times did I survive simply because I woke up.